Their goal is to stay within 2% of a typical F1 team's cost or budget. So that means Hi guys, and welcome back to the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. We've been discovering and learning more about the different types of Formula over the last month. We started with Formula Regional, Formula E, Formula 4, 3, and now we've come to Formula 2. So this video, we're going to talk about the usual things, what, when, where, and everything else that you might find interesting that we definitely found interesting as we did our research looking into Formula 2. So let's just get started. What is Formula 2? Formula 2 is a single make or one make championship consisting out of 22 identical cars. In 2017, the FIA and the GP2 series organization, they came together and decided to repave the road to F1 with the goal to create the most competitive single-seater championship on the planet. Not only is F2 the perfect training ground for the drivers, but also for the technology. During the 2020 campaign of F2, the 18-inch Pirelli tires were introduced first to F2, and then later on, they were brought on to F1. When are F2 races happening? F2 races are happening the same time that Formula 1 races are happening. They're happening earlier in the day in front of the same crowd of F1 fans. And the great thing for the F2 drivers is they're also performing in front of course, the F1 teams for potential future opportunities. The F2 season kicks off also at the end of this month with testing in Bahrain, and then of course the first race at the end of the month leading into March, so from February 28th through March 1st, also in Bahrain with the F1 teams. Where are the Formula 2 races happening? As mentioned previously, they're happening at the same tracks, the same weekends that F1 is happening. However, the F2 season is a little bit shorter. They're consistent of 14 rounds of races in total. Let's talk about the race format. The typical F2 weekend starts off on Fridays with a 45-minute practice session and one 30-minute qualifying session. Then on Saturdays, we have a sprint race, which is either 120 kilometers or 45 minutes, depending on whichever comes first. Then on Sunday, we have the feature race, which is either 170 kilometers or 60 minutes, depending on whichever comes first. During the feature race, teams are also required to do one full pit stop, which they have to change all 4 tires. Let's talk about the starting grids. For example, on Saturdays for the sprint race, the starting grid is determined by reversing the top 10 finishers of the qualifying results from Friday, and the feature race starting grid is determined by the qualifying results from Friday. Let's talk about the point system for the different races. First off, we have the sprint race where the top 8 drivers will be receiving points. Starting with first place will get 10 points, second place will get 8 points, the third place 6 points, and then all the way down to the 8th place. Then for the feature race, the top 10 drivers will be receiving points. So first place will get 25 points, second 18, third 15th, and then down to the 10th place. Additionally, drivers can receive points for earning pole position for Sunday's feature race. These 2 additional points will go to the driver who qualified fastest on Friday's qualifying session. However, if that driver should receive a grid penalty for Sunday's race, that person will not receive the pole position points. So whoever is then on pole position will then receive those 2 additional points. And whoever drives the fastest lap will also receive 1 additional point for Sunday. However, that also determines whether or not the fastest lap driver is in the top 10 of the final results. If not, then the second fastest driver, if they're in the top 10, they will receive the additional point for Sunday's feature race. So in total, the maximum points a driver can receive over an F2 race weekend is 39 points, and the overall points a team can score is 65 points over an entire race weekend. Now let's talk about some of the notable drivers and the winner from last year. Since the birth of F2, several drivers have made it from F2 all the way to F1. If you're familiar with F1, these names are going to be very familiar to you, such as Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, Liam Lawson, Logan Sargent, just to name a couple of them who have graduated from F2 to F1. Several of the drivers on the F2 grid are also named as reserve drivers for F1, so we'll definitely be able to see them throughout the season, not only in F2, but as is mandatory, we'll also be seeing them in an F1 car throughout the season during one of the practice sessions. And the winner of the 2023 Formula 2 Championship was Theo Pocher with Art Grand Prix. So congratulations to him. As per usual, we want to also mention how you can maybe participate in a Formula 2 championship. For Formula 2, there's two major requirements. One, you'll need a FIA license grade A or grade B, and you have to be a minimum of 17 years of age. Of course, a lot more goes into it. You need an extensive resume of driving experience. You have to make it through the different championships to Formula 2, but essentially those are the two main requirements for Formula 2, plus of course, money and sponsorships. So let's talk a little bit more about the Formula 2 car itself. So in 2024, so starting this year, Dallara Automobili will be introducing the brand new 2024 chassis for the F2 vehicle. As mentioned, all of the drivers are driving the identical vehicle, so everybody will be driving with the new chassis. All vehicles also have a 3.4-liter turbocharged V6 engine with approximately 620 horsepower. That means acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is approximately 2.9 seconds. And the maximum speed with DRS tested on a Monza with the Monza specific setup is 335 kilometers per hour. As in Formula 1 and in also Formula 3, the Formula 2 vehicle has the halo for safety reasons, and it also has DRS with the same specifications as F1 and F3 that they'll be able to use it during practice session and qualifying, and then during the actual feature race. After 2 laps, the DRS is typically activated for them to use during specific zones, as long as they're within 1 second of their competitor in front of them. One more thing I came across that I thought was interesting was the 5 core values of Formula 2. The core values include safety, of course, since they're driving a very high-speed car similar to F1 or preparing them, of course, for F1. They have extensive safety features, including, as mentioned, the halo. They go through FIA-specific crash tests to ensure the safety of the drivers. As mentioned, preparation is one of the other core values, of course, preparing the drivers for hopefully a successful future in F1. Entertainment is another one of the core values. Of course, their goal is to provide additional entertainment during F1 race weekend, since F2 is racing on the same weekend. And then lastly, core value number 5 is cost control, which I thought was very interesting. Their goal is to stay within 2% of a typical F1 team's cost or budget. So that means they have centralized purchasing, they have strict rules on team personnel and testing, and outright ban individual development costs, which I thought was interesting. The goal, of course, is cost control, but also to try to create an as equal as possible financial boundaries or platform for the different drivers. Where can you watch Formula 2? You'll be able to watch Formula 2 on F1 TV if you have the paid subscription. Also, there's a list of local broadcasters on their website, which we'll link below for you guys. For example, in the US, ESPN is one of the local broadcasters. One thing that I also found out, which I didn't know, is that Formula 2 also, of course, has their own documentary type series that they have come out with, somewhat along the lines of Drive to Survive that we're familiar with for F1. We just brought out yesterday a video diving into the Formula E version of that, Formula E Unplugged. So Formula 2 also has their own version of it, which is called Chasing the Dream, following the drivers and the teams through the season It's available for you to watch on YouTube. I'll also put a link in the description for you below for that, so you can check it out. It looks like it's a bunch of bite-sized episodes, about 15 minutes each, which is nice. I always think that those types of series are a great introduction for new people, new fans, to learn a little bit more about the teams and the drivers. So I recommend definitely checking it out. I will definitely do so in the future as well. So that's everything I have for you guys about Formula 2. At the end of this month, the 2024 season of Formula 2 kicks off. It's the 8th season. Formula 2 is promising gripping, on-track action, which I'm very much looking forward to. It's also really cool to follow the F2 drivers who are potentially coming future F1 drivers. As you probably already know, we don't have a single rookie on the F1 grid this season. Of course, we have some reserve drivers, but nobody who is full-time on the grid as of now. However, lots of changes are coming up for the 2025 season, so I'm curious to see if anybody from the current F2 grid will make it up to F1 in 2025. So I definitely want to keep an eye on them to maybe wager some bets who I think will be making it into F1 next season. Do you have an idea? Have you been watching Formula 2 and have an idea who would potentially make it into F1 next? Please let me know in the comments down below. As per usual, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. And like and subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Their goal is to stay within 2% of a typical F1 team's cost or budget. So that means